In 2013, a woman in Saudi Arabia was literally convicted of magic and sorcery. Yeah, let me give you guys a really quick background here, and then I'm going to talk about a larger issue at stake at the moment. So check it out. In Saudi Arabia, you have something called the religious police, which is pretty much what it sounds like. It monitors religion and making sure people are abiding by religious law, more or less. And the technical term for them is the Committee for the Promotion of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice, which I think is a long ass acronym. It's literally CPVPV. Anyway, one day, 2013, they bust in this chick's house and she's laying there naked. They tell her to put her clothes on, and while she's putting her clothes on, she literally jumps out the window, lands on her neighbor's roof, and then falls through the roof. Well, that's quite the way to get away. Right afterwards, the religious police ran around and then captured her. And then shortly thereafter, she was convicted, and we never heard from her since. And we also don't know what the conviction looked like for her. According to the religious police and the newspapers, they found incense, talismans, and videos on magic in her room. And so that was enough to be able to convict her. On top of that, there's a local paper there called Al Arabiya, which is essentially like our equivalent of the New York Post. Now, in Al Arabiya, they had claimed that she literally flew like a bird. What? This is literally not an analogy. They were being very serious in the situation. And I even checked the paper itself, and they even have a religious scholar that is in charge of the newspaper. So he's kind of like our equivalent of a lawyer. And he had not only confirmed that she had flown, but also made a comparison between her and other magicians, apparently. So he had said, quote, "Some magicians may ride a broom and fly in the air with the help of the jinn, which is supernatural beings." Okay, look, if she was flying, I want whatever type of drugs she's taken. But even though we don't really know what happened to her, we know what happens to people like her, and that's something that I wanted to talk about. But before I get to that, let me talk about capital punishments in Saudi Arabia first. So check this out. During the span of 16 months from January 2018 to April 2019, 253 people have been executed. Something that is very important to keep in mind also with reference towards capital punishments in Saudi Arabia is the fact that Saudi Arabia is third in the world for most executions. The only countries that have more executions than Saudi Arabia is literally China, that has 1 billion people, and Iran, that has 50 million more people. We're going to go pretty deep in this, and so if you guys have an aversion to gore or learning about the nuances about executions, definitely click away right now. But I think this is important to know because they are the US's ally and Europe's ally, and these are the things that they do. So let's dive into it. The two things I really want to talk about are what makes someone eligible to be executed and how Saudi Arabia actually executes its convicts. Now, there are, generally speaking, two different types of crimes. You have lethal and non-lethal. Lethal is literally like killing people. So in 2018, for example, a man stabbed a woman to death, and that is a lethal crime. Or also in 2018, there was a gang that killed people and robbed a jewelry store. That is a lethal crime. Non-lethal crimes is something a little bit more grisly. Now, Amnesty International had claimed non-lethal crimes are adultery. So, for example, a spouse banging another person outside of the marriage. Armed robbery, apostasy, so renouncing Islam, drug-related offenses, rape, witchcraft, and sorcery, all of which are punishable by death. And on top of that too, you also have homosexuality, and the punishments for that kind of ranges. It ranges everything from prison time to floggings, which is similar to whippings, to being stoned to death. Adultery is also pretty gnarly because you get stoned to death, typically. They also have a lot of different exceptions where they'll add people into the non-violent or non-lethal, I guess you could say, crimes to make them eligible for execution. For example, there's a woman named Isra. I cannot pronounce her last name, but I'm showing her name on the screen right now. She and 5 other people were activists who were protesting Saudi Arabia's treatment of women and LGBTQ people. They were all executed. On top of that, with the executions in Saudi Arabia in 2018, and so this is just the 2018 year, not the 16 months that we had just talked about. In 2018 alone, out of the 148 executions, 59 were for non-violent drug charges. And you can testify against yourself while being interrogated. For example, if you are eating a pot brownie, and which, by the way, they should all eat more, edibles there. Maybe everybody will chill the fuck out, but that's just my opinion. But look, if you're eating a pot brownie there, and then you get interrogated, and they have, say, cables on your nipples or a torch underneath your junk or something, and they ask you, did you eat the pot brownie? Did you eat the pot brownie? Did you eat the pot brownie? And you say, no, 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 even if you didn't do it. And eventually you'll say yes because it's so painful. Boom, there you go. That's it. That is the evidence against you. You are convicted now. Now, well, you're dead. When they execute people, they usually use a firing squad or they behead people. And mostly beheadings, it is not very effective. People don't always die the first shot. It takes multiple shots. On top of that, they save 9 o'clock in the mornings as the time where people are killed. They make it in a public setting, and so usually a public square. They won't announce the crime until usually afterwards. They won't even bother saying it beforehand. So the public is standing there wondering what is going on, and then they'll kill him or her, and then they'll announce what they had done. Imagine with your family walking around, getting breakfast in the morning, and then boom, someone gets beheaded. If the crimes are particularly bad, for example, with the lethal crimes, like the person who had stabbed the woman to death, those instances, you're also crucified. And so your headless body will be hung up like Jesus or by the ankles. It will stay out for however egregious your crime was. So in this case, it stayed out in the open, the hot desert sun for 3 days. And then someone had to go over and pull it down. Okay. My only additional comment to this is, why would anybody have enemies when you have friends like that? So everybody knows that Saudi Arabia has their money in US politics. Everyone from the left with Hillary Clinton all the way to the right with Donald Trump. Today I want to focus mostly on Donald Trump because we can all agree that he is the most powerful person in the United States. And so if there's anyone right now to focus on, it's going to be him. If you guys want me to talk about other politicians in the future, by all means let me know and I'll definitely consider it. But for the time being, let's have a conversation about him. Real quick, I want to show you guys a video of Donald Trump talking about his views on Saudi Arabia. As context, I don't know where he had received the money that he's going to be talking about. There's no sort of records on that. The only closest reference we have is in 2001, Saudi Arabia spent $12 million to buy the 45th floor of the Trump Tower in New York City, right across from the United Nations buildings. Some reports say it was only about $4.5 million, but anyway, that's the best that we can do. Otherwise, we have no idea what kind of money that he's receiving, either before, most likely before, but also potentially during his presidency as well. Just a heads up.
Saudi Arabia, and I get along great with all of them. They buy apartments from me, they spend $40 million, $50 million. Am I supposed to dislike them? I like them very much.
Well, that was pretty interesting. When President Trump began running for office, he actually registered 8 new businesses in Saudi Arabia. So to name a couple, one of which was THC Jeddah Hotel Advisor LLC, and the other was DT Jeddah Technical Services, and this is all according to a 2016 financial disclosure report to the federal government. Now, Trump's organization, called the Trump Organization, had said that he had closed down these businesses after he had gotten into office, but I can neither confirm nor deny that. I don't think any of us really know at the end of the day unless you live in Saudi Arabia. Okay guys, moving forward, in 2017, Saudi Arabia actually donated $100 million. $100 million to Ivanka Trump's global initiative to improve women's rights in Gulf countries. Well, there's really 2 perspectives on this. Number 1, oh look, that's good for them. They are finally doing something about women's rights. Or number 2, no, that's bullshit. They're definitely getting something out of this. They're greasing some palms because they're going to get a deal probably in the near future as a result of that. As you can probably tell, I am in the second camp. Well, fun fact, also in 2017, there is a weapons deal between the United States and Saudi Arabia. It is worth $350 billion over the next 10 years and $110 billion that would take place immediately. What did I say? There we go. That explains it. There we go. I don't really think that they care too much about women's rights. Yeah, guys, look, I'm going to go on a little side rant for a second about this company called Lockheed Martin, which is definitely going to profit as a result of this. Now, they're worth $54 billion. They have 105,000 employees across the United States. Generally, with weapons manufacturing companies like this, they will expand their company in all 50 states. The reason why they do that is because it is very difficult for a politician to try to break them up and stop these weapons deals. Because if they stop these deals or they break up these companies, it's going to hurt their constituents, because their constituents are going to get fired and they're not going to vote that politician back into office. That's some sly, sleazy shit right there. End of my rant about Lockheed Martin. One of the reasons why the Trump administration may also want to approve of this deal, aside from the fact that what's-her-face, Ivanka Trump, just got $100 million, is Iran. Iran and Saudi Arabia do not like each other. Iran is Shia Islam and Saudi Arabia is Sunni Islam. And the United States also wants to overthrow the Iranian government in order to get their oil, like we did with Iraq. And so that's one of the reasons why the weapons deal is currently in place. The other is Yemen. Look, guys. Yemen is one of the worst places right now in the world. There is a genocide that Saudi Arabia is starting against the Yemeni people. Originally, in 2015, Saudi Arabia decided to wage a war to counter these people called the Houthi rebels, but the entire Yemeni population was affected as a result of this. This war is so bad to where the war hawks on the right and the people who really want war on the left, the establishment Democrats and the far left, all agree that we need to stop selling weapons to Saudi Arabia because of how bad the Yemeni war is getting. Even though there's bipartisan consensus on this, the Trump administration actually blocked a bipartisan bill to end the U.S. support for the Saudi war. Now we know why. Let me give you guys a little bit more information about the war in Yemen. So 130 kids are dying every single day. And according to the Mercy Corps, 3.3 million people are displaced, meaning 3.3 million people are homeless in Yemen. That's nuts. To put this in perspective, that is Chicago and an extra 700,000. That is Chicago and another city, probably one of the cities that you live near in whatever state. Typically, cities in the United States, with the exception of LA and New York City, have about 700,000 or less. For me, I live in Portland, so it would be Chicago plus Portland plus another 100,000. So yeah, guys, overall, I hope this video starts to bring a little bit more attention about how Saudi Arabia has influence within the U.S. political system and kind of what are the outcomes. Who are we selling weapons to? What countries are we not helping, like Yemen? And hopefully someone's able to take something new away from this and talk to other people about it. Have you guys ever heard of Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud before? So he's a 33-year-old guy. His dad is the king of Saudi Arabia. His dad is Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. And Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, the guy that I'm talking about today, he's a very fascinating creature to say the least. He's done some good and he's done a lot of bad. Nonetheless, it's a very interesting story I think you guys would appreciate. Now in 2017, our buddy here decided to consolidate his power by overthrowing his cousin and becoming the crown prince and the deputy prime minister. He has literally 3 jobs right now. He is the crown prince, deputy prime minister, defense minister, and then he'll eventually become the king. Now, he got away with this because he created an anti-corruption task force. His idea was to get rid of a lot of the corruption within the Saudi elite systems, which is ironic, and I'll tell you why it's ironic. But he put his own cousin in house arrest. That's pretty hilarious. Here's why it's funny. Imagine the next holiday family visit that they have. At least we know which house they're going to. Has to be the cousin because he can't leave. I'm trying not to laugh right now because that's some shit. On top of this, he also detained 20 influential clerics and intellectuals. So within the Saudi system, the governmental system, you have 2 different branches. And you have the Saudi royal family and courts, and then you have the clerics and intellectuals. It's kind of like a balance of power, even though it's not really. The clerics are the religious justification for the things that the Saudi royal family wants to do. So the Saudi royal family will say, hey, we want to do X, Y, and Z, and then the clerics will find out some sort of religious justification to allow them to do so. Our buddy here, Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, said, fuck that noise. I'm going to go ahead and arrest all of you guys on this side and on that side. I don't give a shit. I'm going to consolidate all this power and become a dictator. What makes him different, though, is that he's also doing a few good things. And so it's a very confusing situation. Before I jump into the different like social and economic liberalization things that he's been doing, a couple of good things here, Let me show you guys a video by Vox that really helps summarize my points here.
Prime Minister and also holding the portfolio.
Check out these two Saudi princes. This one's the 57-year-old crown prince. And this one, the one doing all the hand kissing, is his younger cousin. Listen to what the older cousin is saying. He's being forced to give up his power and to pass the crown prince title to his younger cousin, a guy who's almost half his age. This is Mohammed bin Salman. In the West, we just call him MBS. And since this moment in June, he's consolidated power so swiftly and so thoroughly that in Saudi Arabia, they just know him as Mr. Everything. As Crown Prince, MBS will become king. And with all of this new power, MBS is seeking to assert his dominance throughout the Middle East. One of his big policies has been a vehement opposition to Saudi Arabia's neighbor, Iran. And on that note, he has found an ally in the White House. Inside the kingdom, MBS is also seeking to cement his authority and dominance over the royal family.
Saudi Arabia's young crown prince arresting hundreds of his own cousins and
crackdown on corruption. 11 princes and nearly 40 current or former officials detained, reportedly being held at the lavish Ritz-Carlton.
Yes, if you're a Saudi prince, jail is the Ritz-Carlton. MBS called this a corruption crackdown, and he branded himself as the financially responsible anti-corruption leader. But we're talking about a guy who recently purchased one of the most expensive homes in the world, and who last year spent $500 million on a painting. He clearly had other motives for this crackdown beyond fiscal responsibility. One thing to realize is that the Saudi royal family is made up of thousands of members who use public money generated from oil revenues to fund their unthinkably excessive lifestyles. So it wouldn't be hard for MBS to crack down on anyone he wants to.
All right, we get it. He's trying to consolidate all the power. Outside of that, he is focusing a lot on different social and economic liberalization policies, apparently. He's allowing women to drive now, which they haven't been able to do in the past. Now women, after they're 21 years old, don't have to receive guardian permission from their male figures, and so that would be like their fathers, their brothers, or their sons. Imagine being a mom and having to get permission by your son. Well, now that isn't a thing, so that's good. On top of that, he's investing more in the entertainment sectors as well, so more shows, more concerts, and the like. I think the concept is the fact that they were thinking the Saudi culture may be a little bit flaccid and not up to date with Western society. At least that is the idea behind him trying to create more entertainment sectors. And he is also taking away a lot of the power that the religious police have and their capability of arresting people. Interestingly enough, he actually has a little bit of support by the Saudi people because everybody's recognizing the fact that it's deeply corrupt. But as you know now, he's also deeply corrupt. He's not a complete good guy in terms of social and economic liberalization, though. So have you guys ever heard of a guy named Jamal Khashoggi? He is a Washington Post columnist who was literally killed and chopped up. It was more than likely our buddy, Mohammed bin Salman al-Saud, who was the one who approved of that. Not a good look. Fortunately, in terms of economics, he began investing in solar energy and other fields outside of oil. So cleaner energy, good. That helps, right? Save the world, kill a couple people in the process, meh. I don't know. It's kind of a weird notion nowadays. He's probably going to turn into a horrible figure for the Saudi regime, and I hope to God I don't end up getting on his blacklist for saying that, but it is the truth. Now here is a video by Vox, the second side of the video that I'd already shown you, talking about the different social and economic policies that he has.
Coming into power, MBS's second big move was to loosen the strict moral and social rules of the kingdom. He stripped the religious police of their right to make arrests. He expanded women's rights in society, including giving them the right to drive. On the surface, these are progressive social reforms meant to modernize Saudi society. But like the anti-corruption crackdowns, the move is another effort to seize power. Saudi society is built on a sort of pact between the royal family, which is called the House of Saud, and the vast religious establishment run by conservative Islamic clerics. The clerics give the Saud family legitimacy by giving them their blessing as rulers of the kingdom. In exchange, the family allows the clerics to strictly enforce their uncompromising, puritanical version of Islam within the kingdom. This Faustian bargain means that Saudi princes, like MBS and others, can live these indulgent lifestyles and make deals with the West, but still retain religious legitimacy in the eyes of the public. It's a balance that has kept the kingdom stable in this very volatile region. But now MBS has violated his family's part of the bargain, arresting hardline clerics who might speak out against his progressive reforms. This could shake one of the foundational pillars of Saudi society. The third way MBS is shaking up the kingdom is his plans for the economy. The kingdom's revenue comes almost entirely from oil. Demand for oil has remained solid for decades, and Saudi has reaped the rewards of that. But in 2014, the price of oil started to drop, and it became clear that betting the entire kingdom's economy on this one resource was a dangerous strategy for the future. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is on the brink of one of the biggest transformations in its history. As this young leader consolidates power to upend the status quo, he may also upend the pillars that have kept the kingdom one of the most stable countries in the Middle East.
Yep. See? Now you guys know. He's a very confusing character. He's not 100% terrible, but he's also not 100% good. He's probably, again, about 95% bad and 5% good. Confusing person. What do you guys think about this guy? If you're watching this on TV, please reach out to me at ZachMoss6 on Twitter, or if you're on YouTube, comment in the comment section below, or reach out to me on whatever platforms. I throw them all out there in the description box below. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening to me today.